This message is not for everybody, but for some of you, God is saying you passed the test. Some of you have been experiencing a different type of reality, whereas other people's reality have not been the way yours have been. The chosen ones have been tested, just as Job has been tested. We've experienced the greatest level of opposition, the greatest level of resistance, because we live in a fallen world. There's so much darkness. You are the light. When you expose darkness, the darkness has to flee. And the enemy has been waging war against God's chosen ones, against the righteous, against those who have chosen to believe in God. So the test is of our faith. God allows us to be tested. He wants us to develop strength in our faith to where we're not wavering when the storms come. God doesn't want us to be quick to give up when things are not easy, when we are being tested, just as Job was tested. The battle was over his soul. And the greatest test and the greatest temptation was the temptation to give up. When Job was tested by God, the test was, will he give up while he's in the midst of the suffering? Even his own wife said to curse God and die. The question that is being asked is, will you curse God and die? Will you give up when you're in the middle of the suffering? The Bible says that this is the beginning of sorrows. So for those who have been comfortable living in a different reality without God, and it seems like they're getting by comfortably without God, they are going to be tested. The righteous have been tested for such a time as this because we are the remnant. We will be the ones still standing because we have been tested. So God is saying you have passed the test. If you have made a decision to hold on to your faith and still believe in the middle of the storms, in the middle of the suffering, then you have passed the test. That is the true test, is will you sell out? Will you give up on God? Will you curse God and die? Will you turn your back on God when people are taking the shortcut? When there is a broad way and everyone seems to be taking the shortcut. Everyone seems to be taking the easy road and it looks appealing. But that's just like the enemy, to make things look appealing, to glamorize walking away from God. The greatest temptation is the temptation to give up and to turn your back on God. Think about it. Jesus, Yeshua, was taken to the wilderness to be tempted. He was taken by the Spirit to be tempted by Satan. And he was tempted at his most vulnerable place, at his most weakest point, when he just completed a fast, a 40-day fast. The enemy was tempting him with the splendors of this world as if he didn't already have access. He tempted him in the middle of his suffering. The temptation was, and the question was, will you give up on God in the middle of your suffering? When everyone else is going in a certain direction, when everyone else is going the broad way, will you hold on to your faith? Will you still believe? Do you still believe? And the fact that God's chosen, the righteous, have made a decision to continue this path and to still believe in the midst of the suffering, when everyone else is selling out, when everyone else is selling their soul, and we're still choosing to believe, God is saying you passed the test. We haven't been perfect, but we made a decision who our master is. We chose to follow Christ. The fact that you still believe in the middle of war, when the enemy has been waging war on God's people, and we're still making a decision to follow God, when we've experienced the most opposition coming up against us, the question is being asked, will you still believe when the enemy is providing answers or solutions to your suffering? When he's giving you a shortcut, when he's offering you the splendors of this world, will you sell out? That is the greatest temptation. There are some people that chose to be an atheist because they said, why would a good God allowed these things to happen? But they didn't understand that their faith was also being tested and they failed. When you are a child of God, your dependency is not on the system. It's not on comfort in this world. Our comfort is in the Comforter. Our comfort is in God. Our dependency is on God. But we don't recognize that until we understand who God is in the middle of the storm. That's how we pass the test. And even when it hurts, we still choose to believe. So God is shifting things and he's turning tables in this season. And he's saying, you have passed the test.